There's a moment of quiet, almost invisible, but something inside you whispers. When everything you believed suddenly feels hollow. You wake up, the world is the same. The sky, the noise, the routine, unchanged. Why? Why am I doing any of this? Why keep going? What's the point? And no matter how hard you try to silence it, the question keeps returning, like an echo in a cave that never ends. That's where philosophy begins. Not in dusty books or classrooms, but in that moment of silence, when the world stops making sense. This is the story of meaninglessness, not as despair, but as a doorway. A doorway into understanding what it really means to live. For thousands of years, humanity had an answer. Meaning came from above, from the gods, from destiny, from heaven. The ancient Egyptians built pyramids for eternal life. The Greeks found purpose in virtue and order. The Christians believed their lives were part of a divine plan. Every culture had a story that said, "You are here for a reason." But then, something happened. Science rose, empires fell. The telescope replaced the temple, and the heavens, once filled with gods, became empty space. For the first time, humanity looked at the stars and saw not paradise, but infinite silence. Nietzsche saw it first. He said, "God is dead." And with those words, he wasn't celebrating. He was mourning. Because he knew what would follow when the light of heaven goes out, the shadows of meaninglessness spread everywhere. You can feel it even today. That quiet collapse. We have everything: technology, medicine, comfort, freedom. And yet, we've never felt more lost. We replaced faith with progress. But progress toward what? We replaced heaven with happiness. But what happens when happiness fades? The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard called it the sickness unto death. The despair of being alive without knowing why. He said, "The greatest danger is losing oneself. Can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. We lose ourselves in work, in scrolling, in endless noise. We try to fill the emptiness with pleasure, distraction, success. But meaninglessness doesn't go away. It waits, patiently, in silence. And when silence finally finds you, you start to see the truth that all philosophers feared to admit. Maybe there is no meaning. Albert Camus called it the absurd. He said the absurd is born from the clash between our desperate search for meaning and the universe's cold indifference. We ask, why am I here? The universe says nothing. We ask, what is the purpose of all this suffering? The stars stay silent. It's like shouting into a void and hearing only your own echo. Camus wrote, "The absurd is not in man nor in the world, but in their presence together. It's not that the world is cruel, it's that it doesn't care. And we meaning-making creatures can't stand that indifference. So what do? We invent meaning. We create religions, ideologies, distractions, anything to avoid the silence. But Camus said, the first step to freedom is to face that silence and accept it. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff. Below you, nothing. Above you, nothing. Just wind and sky and the sound of your own breath. That's what confronting meaninglessness feels like. It's terrifying. But in that terror, something happens. You realize that the meaning you were chasing was never out there. It was never written in the stars. It was always waiting inside you. Camus described it through a story, the myth of Sisyphus. a man condemned to roll a rock up a mountain for all eternity. Every time he reaches the top, the rock rolls back down, a punishment without purpose, a life without meaning. But Camus said, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart." One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Why? Because once Sisyphus accepts that there is no higher purpose, his task stops being a punishment. It becomes his act of rebellion. By embracing the absurd, he becomes free. Here's the strange paradox. When nothing matters inherently, everything starts to matter personally. If there's no divine script, then you are the writer. If there's no given meaning, then everything you love, everything you create, everything you choose becomes your meaning. Jean-Paul Sartre called it radical freedom. He said, "Man is condemned to be free." Condemned. Because freedom can feel like a burden. No one to tell you what's right or wrong. No one to give you your destiny. But also free. Because that blank page is yours. And what you write on it is the story of your life. That's what existentialism is. Not despair, but defiance. A philosophy that looks into the void and says, "I'll give it meaning anyway." But most people can't handle that. Meaninglessness is heavy, so we escape. Some escape into religion, some into politics, some into money, some into the endless glow of screens. We build systems, identities, algorithms, machines that promise to fill the void. But every illusion eventually cracks. And when it does, we feel lost again. That's why Camus said, to live without appeal, to stop leaning on illusions, to live with eyes open, seeing the void, and still choosing to live fully. There's a strange beauty in meaninglessness. The sunset doesn't need a reason to be beautiful. A song doesn't need to save the world to move you. A laugh shared between friends doesn't need cosmic importance to matter. Meaninglessness strips life of its illusions, and what's left is raw existence. Pure, immediate, alive. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses, who are only waiting to see us act just once, with beauty and courage." That's what the void is. A dragon waiting for courage. When you stop fearing it, it becomes your teacher. Today, meaninglessness has become a silent epidemic. We don't talk about it. We scroll past it. But it's there. In the emptiness after achieving your goals. In the exhaustion of endless productivity. In the quiet loneliness of the crowd. We live surrounded by noise, but starving for purpose. We chase happiness and forget to ask what it means to be alive. And that's the irony of our time. We've conquered the external world, but not our inner one. The challenge now is not to find meaning in the universe, but to create meaning despite it. So how do you live in a world that doesn't give you meaning? Camus said, "Rebel." Nietzsche said, "Create." Sartre said, "Choose." Rebel against the absurd by living fully. Create beauty, even when it fades. Choose to act, even when there's no guarantee it matters. Because the moment you choose, you've already created meaning. Existence doesn't ask for your belief. It asks for your participation. Meaning isn't discovered, it's lived. Maybe that's what all these philosophers were trying to tell us, that the search for meaning was never about finding an answer, but about learning to live with the question. Meaninglessness isn't the end. It's the beginning of self-authorship. The moment you stop asking, "What's the point?" and start asking, "What do I want this to mean?" that's when life begins to move again. Every sunrise, every mistake, every heartbeat. They don't mean anything by themselves, but that's what makes them precious. Because you are the one who gives them meaning. Maybe the universe is silent, but silence is just space, and space is where music begins. Maybe meaninglessness isn't emptiness. Maybe it's freedom. So next time that quiet voice asks you, "What's the point of all this?" don't silence it. Listen, because that voice isn't despair. It's awakening. It's the moment you stop living someone else's story and start writing your own. And that's the most meaningful thing there is. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think, if you felt even for a moment that spark, the one that lives somewhere between fear and wonder, then don't let it fade. There are more ideas like this, more journeys through the dark places of thought that lead to unexpected light. So if you want to keep exploring them with me, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because next time we'll go even deeper into the philosophies that changed how we see ourselves and the world. Because meaninglessness isn't the end, it's the beginning of the story you choose to tell.